a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle.
Guys, today's episode is made possible by Combat Fuel. Hang on, I got some stuff written down for about here somewhere. One sec. Oh yeah, that's it. Cloudy Lemon. They got a new pre-workout flavour coming out. Cloudy Lemon. I don't know what's in it. I ain't Dumbledore. So I tell you what, actually, I'll read the label. Right. What's on the label? Big words is what's on the label. Beta-alanine. That means that you take your little puny beta muscles and it makes them bigger. Alpha GPC turns you into an alpha, obviously. And Astrogen. Sounds alcoholic. So there you go. There's a few of the ingredients in it. What I will say is I have tried. They sent me out a early tub because, you know, unlike you peasants, I'm actually someone quite important, and I get sent Combat Fuel nice and early. So delicious. And I'm not just saying that. Usually, when you take the old pre-workout, you have to gargle it down like you're in a 3-paddle block party. But not so with Combat Fuel. Delicious tasting, and put even a few ice cubes in there if you want to be fancy and sip on it. So check them out at Combat Fuel, combat-fuel.co.uk. Linked up in the show notes. Let them know I sent you. Stick the code in, VSOM, at checkout, and they'll give you some money off. Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. I'm your host, Geraint Jones, joined via the interwebs by Mr. James Fairman. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about your career. But hang on, I just said that I was going to let you talk about that bit. So why don't you give us the top-down view on where you're from, what you used to get up to, and what you're up to now?
First of all, thank you for having me on as your first pilot, I understand, despite getting to nearly 200 episodes of the podcast.
I think it might be. I think you might be our first pilot, mate, to be fair. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, yes, you are.
Cool. The marvellous Liz McConaughey beat me as Rotary crew when she did her awesome episode. But anyway, okay, about me, because a pilot is never going to turn down the opportunity to talk about themselves. So I wasn't a scaly brat, but I might as well have been. The amount I moved around as a kid, so I lived all over the place. But the interesting life started in August 2001 when I joined the Royal Air Force and went to RAF Cranwell to train to be an officer first, pilot second, which isn't true at all. You're a pilot first, obviously. And that was a month before the 11th of September 2001. So a month into our course, we were doing the old pine poles, and our flight commander came out and said, someone's just flown 2 aircraft into the Twin Towers. So our RAF regiment instructor the next morning.
Who are they? Never heard of them.
I promised myself I would sing the praises of the RAF regiment as often as I could on this podcast.
Well, you can sing on a different podcast, mate.
They didn't even make us do the 5 miler of death. We weren't hard enough for that at Cranwell. You don't make the officers do that sort of hardcore stuff. You'd kill us all.
You gentlemen.
Yeah. So he was marching us up and down the next day with, we're all off to Afghanistan. We're going to get that bin Laden. So that was an interesting 6 months, as essentially we just sort of switched off from the rest of the outside world, finished off the course. They obviously didn't have the wherewithal to think, right, okay, let's, we can see that the world's changed. How does the Air Force change with it? No, let's stick with the 1970s training program and turn these fine ladies and gentlemen into officers. I finished that in February 2002, became the equivalent of a first lieutenant, and started my flying training, which went on for a couple of years. I then made it to the mighty Puma and the operational conversion unit down at RAF Benson in Oxfordshire in mid to late 2004. And after learning how to fly that for 6 months, was posted out to my first frontline posting in Northern Ireland, out to Opbanna on the mighty 230 Squadron, the Tiger Squadron out there, where I lived the best job in the world as a helicopter pilot in the Royal Air Force. It was absolutely bloody brilliant. Flying an incredible aircraft, even though it was old. She's like a sports car, is the Puma, or more like a TVR. It's like, when you're handling it and you can do it properly and you're driving like the Stig, it's absolutely epic. But if you take your eye off the ball for a second, she'll bite you in the ass and crash you into a hill. difficult aircraft to fly, but that's why they send all the legends to her and not to Chinooks or anything else. So yeah, did that at Northern Ireland, and then started to do some of the more real stuff by going out to Iraq in February 2006. Probably a similar time, I think, to when you were around out in Basra, or was that when you'd gone to Herrick by then? I can't remember.
I was at 06, 07, mate.
Right. But we were up in Baghdad, so we were doing what was called the Baghdad Helicopter Detachment, the BHD, when Route Irish had got so dangerous up in Baghdad that they weren't going to put any more road moves on between Baghdad International Airport and the Green Zone. So the mighty Puma taxi came in to take over. So we flew 2 aircraft so that you had both the carrying capacity and the top cover from the other aircraft, flying bus runs around Baghdad, the various parts of the Green Zone, the training areas where Brits and Americans were training up the Iraqi forces, and flying diplomats, civilians. If you've ever watched Green Zone, the film, it's that sort of intense area in the centre of the town behind all the blast walls, where you had bizarre numbers of civilians and diplomats and everyone working to try and make pull the shit out of the fire that they'd made by doing it without a plan to start with, if I'm allowed to say that.
Oh mate, on this podcast, come on, you know me. This is music to my ears.
You read books like Fiasco about Iraq and the Middle East specialists who said, well, we told them this was going to happen. And then when the administration realizes, having kicked everyone out of the bath party, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Can we try and turn this around? No, you can't. So anyway, we did the very simple life of taxiing. And again, it was epic. As a young junior officer and pilot flying the aircraft it's not proper combat zone. It's not the sort of stuff that you and Liz were talking about in Afghanistan. But you saw a bit of tracer when you did the night flying. Ooh, pretty, as it sort of zoomed off into the distance. And then you think about it and you realise, well, actually, if you've seen the tracer, it's going the other way. What about the ones that are coming towards me that I can't see? Oh, shit, don't think about that. And that was that. I did 2 of those, did another one later on in November that year. And then the following year, in early 2007, went back out, slightly different debt, and had a very close friend of mine was killed in an accident. And that was when things kind of started to unravel for me a little bit. Didn't realise it at the time. The Puma Force was very, very busy. The Air Force was busy. The Army was busy. Everyone was giving it full everything. And I got married later that year, and it was very difficult being essentially based in Northern Ireland. So that was when you were home. But my other half was a doctor in Newcastle. She was a med student when we met, and then graduated as a doctor. But the Air Force, in its infinite wisdom, still had the mindset of sort of 1970s. You're married, your little wife lives on the patch. And that's the way it is. So it's a bit weird when someone turns around and says, well, my wife earns more than me. Her career moves her around a lot as well. Is it because I'm a bloke, or because the military is this overarching amazing thing? The NHS is a public service as well. Who's going to win? The military is. Fairman, flipping, get your acting gear and pull your wife in line. It was interesting going to one of the briefs by the Armed Forces Pay Review Board at the time, which usually you'd be mortified to have been stung to have to go and listen to them. But they knew what the score was back then. Their reports had said, this is a challenge facing the military now, that spouses will earn more. You're not necessarily going to be the priority anymore, and you're going to have to battle that. No, you just tell the military bods what to do. So I was at that point feeling like I was pulled in 2 different directions. I went back out, did another debt. My nickname at the time was fairy cakes, which anyone who follows me on Instagram will know well. And I was a mild-mannered kind of guy that matched that nickname. Although one funny moment in Iraq, if I may give you one worded, because it's a bit of a laugh. There was a general, I think, or a colonel, was sitting in the back of the aircraft, and I was walking out with the maps and weapons. As the pilot was shouting, "Where's Fairy? Where's Fairy?" And this general or colonel said, "Please God, tell me that I'm not about to be flown over the sunny triangle by a fucking pilot called Fairy." Just as I climbed in and went, "Hi, sir!" and jumped into the front, filling him with confidence. But we got him there safely for his quail's eggs on toast for supper in the green zone. Back home, being pulled in a couple of different directions. We had a bad year as the Puma Force in 2007 because we had 3 large accidents with, I think it was across those accidents, we'd lost 5, 6, 7 people from crews and passengers that were killed, and obviously a number more that were injured. And we all just kind of had to keep hands to the pump, but that was difficult for me. I struggled. And in the end, while being pulled in a couple of different directions by personal life and military desire, I started self-harming after drinking too much. I used to get very angry on that last debt. Having been fairy cakes, I was then nicknamed Flashman because my temper would go off so quickly, usually shouting at American pilots for getting in our way. But I then got downgraded, posted out to a ground tour, and although I did get back to flying, it never quite went right again, even though I was even better coming back a second time. If I can blow my own trumpet a little bit, I was an awesome pilot by the end. But that, that comes back to a lot of what you've talked about with other people on the podcast, that when you're kind of not necessarily a spent force as an operational member of the military, you've still got a huge amount to give in a training role or an advisory role. And I was really good at what I did towards the end, but it was, no, we don't want you around influencing the other guys with your attitude and your mental health. So off you go back to a ground tour and I PVR'd the premature voluntary release and left. I was on a 16-year commission, but left at 10 years. You have to kiss goodbye to your pension. But it was worth it at that point because it just wasn't working. But during that time, I'd seen the DCMH, which I can never remember what it stands for, but the military hospitals, basically, for my mental health at the time when I was downgraded. And I always feel like I'm being harsh on them when I look back on it, but it feels like I got a pat on the knee and they're there, you know. It's like the old World War II Spitfire pilots that lost some friends in dogfights. They meet up every year to have a beer, shed a few tears over some lost friends, and then go back on their way. That's what you have. That's not PTSD. That's just natural grieving. PTSD is when someone has seen a friend injured or killed in an IED. They've seen horrible wounds, and they take their kids to a birthday party, and there's a long pink balloon blowing in the wind, and that reminds them of these injured limbs from the trauma that they've seen, and it triggers them so that they're right back there. That's PTSD, and you don't have that. So I'm like, okay, great, I don't have PTSD. That sounds horrible. I feel really bad for the people that have to go through that. I'm nothing like as bad as that, so off I go. Fairy cakes is fixed. And then once I left, or even before I left, but especially when I left the military, I was angry and irritable, snappy. I just thought, much as I had not wanted to go through that process that people describe of, oh, well, you're institutionalized. It's because you've been in the military and you've had your bum wiped and you're looked after all the time. Your meals are cooked for you and you're paid and you don't have to do anything sort of socially. I thought, well, maybe I have succumbed to that. I've been in for 10 years after all. And I started retraining as a lawyer just to do something completely different. Lots of people said, well, why don't you go to the airlines and fly? It sounded a bit too difficult for me. There's lots of exams. So I retrained as a lawyer instead. And I saw a lot of counsellors, therapists through my GP. Even when I was retraining, I went to see the counsellor at the university that I was at in Newcastle to talk through some of my issues, but with the best will in the world. And some of the civvy clinicians are fantastic, particularly the ones with a lot of experience of the military. I'm sure we'll get on to talking about Op Courage and CTS and VTILs. And they are excellent, if not exceptional, at talking to veterans. Me pitching up to some poor counsellor at university that's used to talking to homesick students and going, yeah, I've got this grief and trauma, I think, from being in the Air Force, seeing a helicopter crash. And they were like, okay. But I was able to keep talking myself into, well, that shrink who was a group captain in the military and was a psychiatrist. And I'm like, I have so much respect and trust for rank, because it's what's drilled into you, isn't it? In the military, the high rank they're the ones that know the stuff. They do the do.
Sorry to interrupt me, but when you're saying the group captain, you mean the one who gave you the original pat on the knee?
Yeah.
There, off you go. That's the guy.
Exactly.
Right?
So, and this is the other thing when you see someone like that of course you're going to smile and say I'm fine, because you assume that's what they want to hear, and it's a group captain. So it's the equivalent of a full colonel. There's me as a captain equivalent going in and saying, oh, I'm really sad and all this is happening and please help me. It's like, I'm fine. How are you, Fairman? Yes, I'm fine, sir. Absolutely. And off you toddle. So Civvy Street was then very difficult. I went into a difficult job as a trainee solicitor. I still enjoyed it, but I never made the connection, again, because I'd been told I didn't have PTSD, so I didn't have PTSD, but I would freak out with anxiety at the simplest things. I remember being asked to go and sit behind a barrister in court for one of the partners from the law firm, so one of the senior members of the law firm. They had a very big, important case, but it was just a procedural hearing. They'd have sent all the papers to the barrister, so the barrister wouldn't have needed me. All I was there to do was hold the files for him in case he needed to look something up that was unexpected. But I was absolutely shitting myself. I remember I had to drive over to Carlisle to go to Carlisle County Court for this hearing. And I was absolutely petrified that the judge might ask me something, that the barrister might need something. And the firm, my supervisor, said to me, "You've flown helicopters over Baghdad. What the fuck are you worrying about with this? It's just a court hearing." And yet I had that for 4 years. Yeah, 4 years at the law firm. God, it feels like longer than that. 2 years as a trainee and 2 years as a qualified solicitor. And it was like it all the time. If anything, it got worse. Once I'd qualified, you start running your own cases rather than just helping the partners out. And so I'd qualified into healthcare law, which was mainly clinical negligence work and inquests, which obviously wasn't very cheery. I realised in retrospect, when you're going and sitting along representing clinicians at there were a lot of suicide inquests, and while it was uncomfortable, it was also very instructive for me as to my frame of mind when you listen into the clinicians and the coroner talking about things like suicide ideation, So
what does that mean, mate? For the peasants listening who don't speak learned scholar.
Peasants, it means thinking about suicide. So if you have looked at the tree in your garden and thought, yeah, that's where I'd stick a climbing rope or a piece of paracord, because I'd be high enough off the ground that I could kick away a stool and that'd be all right. That's suicide ideation. If you think about how would I get hold of a paddleboard or a small boat so that my family wouldn't wouldn't have to deal with a body. Or, as I've obviously recently listened again to your marvellous book, when you were talking about driving along the coast and thinking about chucking the car away.
Oh, thanks, mate. I'd buried that again. Now that's back out in the open. Where's me cocaine?
Peter said we weren't going to shout. We were going to make each other shout to the rafters.
I'm allowed to shout.
That's suicide ideation. That's thinking about suicide. And so much of this started, it hadn't broken down the door in my head to say, Harry, this is you. But all the things afterwards, when you look back in hindsight, you start to see, yeah, okay. And this was one of the things that when I kind of reached a low ebb, but also an epiphany through my treatment, I was like, if I'm going through this, there is bound to be at least one other person going through this. And I still feel thoroughly ashamed to be in that position, but I kind of can detach myself from it to think other people wouldn't be. Other people aren't necessarily ashamed of me. Some people might be, but they can fuck off. You and Joe have taught me that. And it's therefore worth sticking myself out there a little bit if you can help. And especially with the training that I'd had with the clinical negligence, the inquest work, that was one of the ways that I had come up with the website.
I do have some questions about pilot stuff because I do find pilot stuff fascinating. But as we're at this point though, let's go down this AFCS. Let's call it what it is, black hole of misery. Let's go down that, and then we'll circle back.
Yeah, circle back.
Jen Psaki now. Circle back. And we'll circle back and we'll talk a bit about Top Gun. Yeah, Top Gun, etc. So tell us about the website, mate, and what it is. Just tell us everything about what you're up to with this site.
So it's been my labour of love for about 6 months now. But it was kind of a cathartic way for me to get my feelings out about the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme. So for those that don't know what that is, it is the Ministry of Defence's scheme to, as it sounds, compensate you for injuries that you might have suffered during your service. And unlike the predecessor scheme, which was called the War Pensions Scheme, this one, the AFCS, is available to serving personnel as well as veterans. So it's not purely for veterans. I think in its design, the scheme is pretty good. If you were to follow the JSP, the Joint Service Publication, which are the military publications that guide the way that all the military stuff works, then if you were to follow that and the legislation, so there's an order rather than an act, but essentially it is something that has been passed by Parliament to say, this is how we will run this scheme, this is how the scheme works, these are the rules for it. And then JSP 765 explains that in better terms. And it's actually very well written. If the scheme worked as it should, I think it's pretty fair and pretty good. If you have suffered an injury, or if a pre-existing injury or illness is made worse by your service, then you will be given some money for it. It doesn't matter whether anyone's been negligent or at fault for that. You will get an award, or should get an award. So one of the examples that I give on the website is if you've got appendicitis while you're serving, you're not going to get any money for that, because appendicitis can happen to anyone. It's caused by your body. But if you're out on exercise in Kenya or in Norway and you get appendicitis, but you can't do a road move and the helicopter can't get to you because of bad weather, and you then end up going into some sort of septic shock and get really badly casevaced out and have to have worse surgery, you go septic, get repatriated and have a bit of time in hospital and a scar, then you will get something because your injury or illness has been made worse by your service. And I think that's pretty cool in its intention. If you take my situation, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, which I still find very difficult to accept because the previous reasons about pink balloons and people that suffer what I consider real trauma.
Pink balloon things, fucking, that's some Hollywood bollocks, that is, mate.
Yeah, well, okay, getting blown up in a warrior, that's a pucker injury.
Not really, because the thing is, mate, humans being humans, like when we've had Vietnam vets on the podcast, they're like, yeah, but I wasn't in the Pacific campaign, was I? People in the Pacific campaign were probably like, well, I wasn't in the trenches, was I? And do you know what I mean? That's just how it is.
True. Okay, jumping back to my situation, it's probably easiest to explain. If you accept PTSD, there is a section in the order for mental injury. It's not the best written because it has largely taken the physical injury sections and tried to apply it without writing it separately. So when you break down all the categories, it's a bit clumsy. But psych isn't an exact science anyway. You can't take a blood test and go, yeah, this guy's got like a level 6 out of 10. Yeah, he's got gonorrhea and a level 6 out of 10 PTSD. It's based on the assessment of the expert shrinks. And so that's why you get a report. The law was changed a couple of years after it came out. So the order was, the most recent order was made in 2011. And that was updated, I think, in 2013 to say that you have to get a diagnosis by a consultant psychiatrist or clinical psychologist. So you're getting the top level or top criteria rather than level. They're not necessarily the best because you might have a very experienced associate specialist doctor. But if you get everyone sort of knows what a consultant is, knows that they're theoretically the top level of doctor. So they're saying you've got PTSD. They do that and they can, in their professional opinion, say what level you have. That then goes off to an organisation called Veterans UK, and that's where the difficulties come in. So this is the, I don't know if they're still called Quangos, but the subdivision of the Ministry of Defence that is responsible for assessing the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme claims. So be that if you've got a physical injury, you've lost a limb, that might have happened by being knocked down by a 4-tonner while marching across the base, or if you've got PTSD from service in Iraq or Afghanistan. You send in your claim form, which is pretty intimidating to start with because it's not exactly short, and they will then get your records from the military, get any civvy records that might be relevant from your doctor. They'll go through them, compare them to the order in the JSP, and work out what level of injury you are compared to the list, what they call a tariff. Once they've worked out what it is, okay, so you've lost an ankle from being run over by the 4-tonner, that's needed to be amputated. So that comes in at a level X. We cross-refer that to the table of financial awards, and they give you a level 1 to 14, I think it is, of award, with the lower numbers being a higher award. So a level 1, you're going to be seriously injured, very, very seriously injured. So they make that award. Some of them come with what's called a guaranteed income payment, which is essentially a pension. It's an annual award for life. The lowest one of those is a quarter of your either current pay if you're still serving, or your pay when you left, uprated for inflation. So using mine as an example again, if I were to be awarded that, I left on 44 grand as a flight lieutenant, level 7. So I would get 11 grand a year theoretically, if I were assessed at that level. The difficulty with the system as it is at the moment isn't, I don't think, with the written system. It's with the way it's implemented and applied by Veterans UK. Now, they may be under massive pressure from the Treasury to try and save money.
Don't give them any excuses. Tell us you want us to hang them. Come on, that's what you're here for.
I think I remember your rants and bants about it with Joe. Said, before the Jaish al-Mahdi, before the Taliban, mass grave, Veterans UK, in you get.
We would never condone any form of violence against anyone, so it definitely wasn't us.
Even if they are under a lot of pressure for it, the system is what it is. You've got to apply when you're a lawyer like me. You apply the law. If there's a policy problem with it, like it costs too much, that's for the politicians to change the law because they're the lawmakers. Mm-hmm. So if they make the correct awards and it's costing them a fortune and it's unsustainable, then they have to debate it and pass a law, which might look bad when it's in the Mirror, the Sun, the Daily Mail. Oh, look at these evil government changing the law so that these poor soldiers and veterans are going to get less money. And so instead, I can only assume that there's a bit of pressure on Veterans UK to save money by being
cunts.
Judicious with their decisions. Well, not judicious because that would be being fair. So I'm tying myself up in knots. Yeah, they're being cunts.
I think I get what you're saying. It's basically, mate, they're in a salaried position. Their bosses are saying, wink, wink, don't hand out as much money. And even if their bosses aren't saying, they're like saying, I know what's expected of me here. Save some money. Troops, bus, under. And then they get a nice, then they get a nice pay rise, don't they? You know that tree you were looking at, tying yourself off? I've got some suitors. Never let a good hanging tree go to waste is my motto. Right, so basically, mate, yeah, what you're saying is, it's the nature of fucking bureaucratic systems, isn't it, really? The bureaucrats start looking out for themselves and their own pensions and everyone else gets fucking screwed.
The difficulty, I think, comes with the medical advisors that are involved with this, and they're the ones that I am less eager to let off the hook, because they're the ones, there's too much anecdotal evidence now from the number of people that I've spoken to and heard say about how bad this is. And there must be loads of other people that have given up on the whole system, because it is
definitely,
it is soul destroying.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost exactly a year ago, last February, March, I was close to a breakdown because I was trying to do my appeal myself. And
you are, sorry to interrupt, mate, just to make this clear to people, you are trained in law. You are an expert in paperwork and law mumbo jumbo. Fair to say.
Yeah, and not just law mumbo jumbo, healthcare law mumbo jumbo, because I was I specifically qualified into healthcare law. I used to represent the health trusts in clinical negligence cases, so I'd be assessing claims that people would put in, and you either settle them if they're fair, or you challenge them and try and take it to trial if they're not.
So you were on the other side of this, you big hypocrite.
Exactly, but that's how I know what the tricks are. But
a man on the inside.
Yeah. So my plan this time last year was, okay, I'm going to see if I can help some other people out, because I'd written a few letters to try and get stuff. My MP was really helpful, but she's not military and it's difficult for other no, she's absolutely lovely. She's a proper superstar. I think it's very, very difficult. I will here we go. I'm going to be really unpopular on this podcast, aren't I? I'm going to be sticking up for the RAF regiment for MPs. You're going to kick me off. I'm going to go mute in a minute and you're just going to have a chat with yourself for the next half an hour.
Just so everyone knows, while James was saying that his MP did a great job, he was making hanging motions. He was gesticulating with his hands, miming that he'd like to hang her. That definitely happened. That definitely happened, Jen.
Robocop Jen.
No, not Robo Jen. I refuse. I refuse, because then on my honour I would have to. There's video evidence of this, and I'm not. My hair is too fucking precious to me. All right, I was lying. It was me doing the hanging motions. So mate, so you got your MP involved. You are a learned scholar, a man of words and letters, and you couldn't make head nor tail of what the fuck was going on.
And also, I was in.
So what hope does some poor peasant who's never, poor peasant who's never, and joking aside, never really had the opportunity for learning properly, and is this the deliberate thing to stop the peasants, infantry, etc., getting what they're entitled to, do you think?
I don't know if it would. I'd like to think that it's not that calculated, but the fact that
let's just speculate and say there it is.
Yeah, the fact that it says on the Veterans UK website that you don't need representation to do it, that you can ring what's called the Veterans Welfare Service, and again, they may be very well intentioned, but they're not legally trained. I rang them at the start of mine when I was a mess, and they said, "Oh, you're out of time. It's outside you 3 years." And so I could have walked away then if I didn't know any better. But being a solicitor, I knew that there's what's called a date of knowledge. So if you haven't found out about an injury, the clock starts when you do find out about it. So I'd been told I didn't have PTSD for all that time. So in 2018, when a shrink says, actually, we think you do have PTSD and you've probably had it for a long time, that's when the clock starts. So I would have walked away. And that's where you do need some legal help. Even if, unfortunately, you do have to pay for it. It's not just the help. They're a shield for you, because it is a draining process, even without doing it yourself, and with the lawyer there. It's still horrible. I hate hearing anything about them. It upsets me for days, if not longer, especially on the when it's actually a substantive point on my claim. It is absolutely horrible experience. And I remember reading in an excellent book, I think it was by a chap called Scarite Jones, Brothers in Arms, available from all good booksellers. He'd said that, squaddies aren't thick, and they're not. They may not have been given the same opportunities as someone like me, but they're not dense, and they won't necessarily understand the legal language. I wouldn't if I hadn't been trained specifically in it. And the AFCS is very legalese. It's then got the extra layer of healthcare stuff on it as well. And they're going to have reports that have been written by a group captain at a DCMH or a colonel doctor who, if they're not necessarily protecting their own skin and reputation, but they will be set in their ways and they will make decisions thinking, well, this guy's absolutely fine. He's a highly educated guy who's been to university. He's been a pilot in the Air Force. He's done very well in a headquarters afterwards when he couldn't be asked flying anymore. He's then gone on and retrained as a solicitor, won a prize locally for being the best trainee solicitor in the North. And now he's coming bleating to us saying he's got PTSD. He wants to stay at home and play with his kids and write a book and live off the state. No, fuck off. But when the shrinks meet me and you drill down into past this mask, which everyone who's gone through this knows that they put onto people, whether it's through drinking or through being articulate or through being quiet, you mask up. You don't think about your mental health and how difficult some things are, because you switch into, right, I'm going to be Flight Lieutenant Fairman today. I'm going to be on it and articulate and cool. And then at home, once you've expended all of that energy from that, and your other half asks you to load the dishwasher before you go to bed, you're like, fuck off, I'm not doing that.
Just fill her in, just say, like, what do you think you're doing? This is your duties. Smash, less of your lips, smash. Do them by hand, smash, now pick up the pieces. I know exactly what you're saying, mate, and I condone that. No, I don't really. Veteran state of mind does not condone wife beating.
My superstar other half, who has stuck with me through thick and thin of this.
Right, the doctor. Mate, I've got a couple of points before we lose them that I want to get onto there. Something that you said, which was, I think, really pertinent in this, and applies to a lot of people, is that you're usually going to be trying to get this help while you are in a position of being properly head-fucked, right?
Yeah.
And there's definitely I think it's fair to say there's absolutely no consideration for that whatsoever. The other thing I find really, let's call it interesting, is this 3-year thing. Now, I forget the exact numbers, right? But what I was saying on the PTSD things, I was reading some studies about the Vietnam veterans and stuff, and there was a spike in Vietnam veterans when veterans were hitting their like kind of mid-late 60s and a spike in PTSD with them. Essentially because they'd come back from war, compartmentalized everything, pushed everything down inside themselves, and then kind of like self-medicated with, let's just say alcohol, cigarettes, drugs maybe, but definitely by just keeping busy, which is a great way of compartmentalizing. And then when they retired and they had time on their hands, all of a sudden they're like, holy fuck, and all this stuff comes back up. That is going to be 40, if the average age of the combat soldier in Vietnam was 19, as we all know from the song, that is going to be, hang on, my maths, 46 years after they served, right? So what the fuck is this 3-year window? It's ridiculous.
To be fair to them with the 3 years, that's for a physical injury, even though I still massively disagree with it. And I've done a whole page on the website about time limits. You've got 7 years theoretically for a mental injury or for...
7 years, quick.
Well, exactly. There's also the date of knowledge argument. But apparently, talking to solicitors that run these cases, the MOD fights what you call limitation. So a limitation period is that period of 3 or 7 years. Fights them really hard. They exist. I mean, some clinical negligence lawyers will still say that they're deeply unfair, but they exist in civil law to try and stop you from popping up with a claim.
For some veneer owed, for a legitimate claim. So, right. Is it fair to say that the children of these people should be thrown onto a massive bonfire?
No.
He's not disagreeing, listeners. I think is that on your website as well? Where to best places to have bonfires for these fuckers' kids?
There's a fiery demon on there.
Mate, that is absolutely disgusting, though. The idea that, like, well, yeah, we don't want people popping up with cases. Hang on a minute. If they've got the fucking injury and the mental injury, then when does it matter if they pop up? I'm sorry if it's inconvenient to you, Ministry of Defence, to be paying out for someone who's probably lost his relationships, years of sanity, and now probably has crippling addictions. Sorry if that's inconvenient that it took him a few years to do his fucking paperwork.
Exactly that. I couldn't put it any better myself.
So, mate, what is it that you're hoping to do with this? If it's not about burning people's kids alive, then what is it about? What good can you do?
It's partly to show there's someone else going through it, and that there's someone who is articulate, relatively intelligent, and is legally trained, and I've still really struggled with it. So hopefully if anyone's trying to go through the system and thinks, oh, fucking hell, if he can't do it, and I guess to make it slightly acceptable or more acceptable, to instruct a lawyer to help you with it, because it is a difficult decision. You shouldn't have to. And there are charities that will help. The wonderful British Legion that I know sponsors the podcast. They have a dedicated page on their website to help out with claims, but obviously it's a small part of what the Legion can do, and lawyers are expensive and they can't pay for every single person claiming to the AFCS to have a lawyer. They will talk to you about it. They will have a chat. And I've spoken to them with my claim, and I was going to give up. I was very close to giving up after I had. So there's 3 stages to the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme decisions. You get the initial decision, then you can ask for what's called a reconsideration, which is like the first stage of an appeal. But a different assessor and medical advisor within Veterans UK looks at it and says, nah. And then you appeal, which goes to an independent tribunal. It's such a horrific experience that at the end of the reconsideration, you start to doubt yourself. You think, well, if they've had 2 trained medical advisors look at this and they've said he just wants to mooch off the state, play with his kids at home, write a book, you're fine to go to work, fucking go back to work, then maybe I am. Maybe I'm just a leech and I should moocher and should just go back to work, get a job, or live on my carer's allowance for looking after my little one. But you then speak to the lawyers and they're like, no. And you read the reports of the 3 other shrinks that have assessed me and who say, articulate bloke who thinks deeply about his condition, and locks away a lot. I've got another therapy session tomorrow morning with the complex treatment service, and we're only just starting to tap into the hardest parts of what's caused my mental injury. A couple of weeks ago, we just got into the start of it, and I kind of felt, this is starting to break down the dam a little bit. I'll stick a couple of rocks back in that hole. So back to what am I trying to achieve with the website? If I can, one of the things that inspired me to pick it up again, because I tried a couple of times, but since starting using Instagram a lot more, I've had quite a lot of messages since putting my mental health stuff on there, and a few bits and pieces about the AFCS, that people were interested in what I'd been through because they were applying to the scheme and wanted to know what it's like and whether it was worth claiming. Obviously, you've done the episode with Joe about it, and a lot of it's closed away and it's unknown. A lot of people might think that, if I do that, I'm taking money away that would otherwise be going on kit and equipment for the rest of the lads and lasses. But you're not. It's all coming from one imaginary pot that Rishi Sunak magics up.
£200 million net worth, Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, when we're fucking donating millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds worth of fucking weapons to Ukraine, you can get what you're owed for your fucking head that got fucked up. Or your leg that got fucked up, your back that got fucked up. Like, let's be honest, you're not going to get much for it. But if you can get what you can, then don't fucking feel bad about it. You're owed that fucking money. These motherfuckers will take everything they can from you. So,
absolutely.
Anyway, I told myself I won't get mad. So sorry, mate. Where can people find this website and stuff? In fact, you know what? Stick a peg in on that. We'll come back to that one at the end. We'll come back and we'll tell everyone to find things at the end, because otherwise people are going to forget, aren't they? There's a lot more we could talk about this, mate, but I think we've given people a taste there, and they can find more on the website. I'm interested in knowing a bit more about, I'd like to know pre-jaded James and what made you join the RAF in the first place.
I wasn't one of these kids that grew up wanting to be a pilot, bizarrely enough. I had gone out to, my cousin had married a guy in the US Air Force. He wasn't a pilot, but I went out to help them do a base move. I know you know the States very well. And I flew out into Colorado Springs, and they were relocating over to California. And they had 2 kids, 2 cars, a dog. And so I said, I'll come and help you do the road trip in the summer holidays from university. And then I ended up extending my stay and staying at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, near Lompoc, for about 6 weeks over the summer. And it was absolutely brilliant. And the way that the Americans do things with their military is just epic. You want to take a boat out on a lake up in North California sometime. Okay, there's 3 over in the giant parking lot, load of RVs. Just sign one out for the weekend. I was like, this is amazing. I want to do this. Obviously, it's a little bit different in the British military.
If you want to hear about, here's your Bergen and your fucking bivvy cover getting that lake.
So
yeah, it is not quite the same, sir.
But I was partway through my law degree, and I didn't like law at the time. I wanted to do something else, and this just seemed the way forward. So I got back, got in touch with the liaison officer at my university town, who got me on a base visit. Went up to RAF Lucas, where the F-3 Tornado fighters, interceptors, used to be based. Sat in the mess and had a few beers, chatting to some of the officers, and just thought, yeah, this is fantastic. This is what I want to do. It's amazing. I'd grown up absolutely loving Tom Clancy, and which has also been one of my big inspirations for writing. But I loved his stories of daring do in the military, and also his relatively compassionate treatment of both sides. And I wanted to be part of that sort of heroism and understanding. And, like you are when you're a young, naive kid, you think it's all black and white and Disney, Star Wars, and we'll go and bash the baddies. I'd applied for pilot because it was the top job in the Air Force. I thought, well, there's no point applying for something else to start with, but if I can't make pilot, I'll do something else because I really want to be in the Air Force.
I've always been interested in knowing how it's decided then what airframes different pilots go on to. Do you have any choice over that? Do you get to say, like, I want to do Pumas, or I want to do this, or
you get to say it?
Yeah.
It doesn't really count for anything.
Is there a bit where a guy goes, I've given you your dream job, send you to Top Gun? Does that not happen?
Really, no.
It just goes, you just get like a list pinned up on the wall, and it's like, all right, I guess I'm doing Pumas then.
One of my best mates, when we get to, you do your first stage of flying training is on a little fixed wing propeller aircraft that does loads of aerobatics and nav and stuff like that. And that's before you're streamed to either fast jet, multi-engines, or rotary. Everyone wants to be it.
So when you say, hang on, streamed, that means they decide, right, you lot go in fixed wing.
Yeah.
So that's fixed wing is normal planes, and then rotary is helicopters.
There's fast jet, which is your Eurofighters, Harriers. Back when I was in, there was Harriers and Jaguars. Now it would be the F-35 Lightning or the Eurofighter Typhoon, or rotary, so any of the helicopters that the Air Force flies, or multi-engine, which is what no one wanted at that point because that's flying rubber dog shit out of Hong Kong, but is actually
So I got fixed. So those ones, mate, that would be what, Hercules. Yep. The refueling tankers, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So no one wanted to do that. I thought Hercules would be pretty alley job.
I think it is when you get there. Certainly from the multi-engine. If you had a chance of going multis back then, could have gone Nimrod, which was the submarine hunters at the time. Now been finally replaced by Poseidon. Or like you say, there's the tankers. At my time, there was still the VC-10, which you probably will have taken out to theatre a few times before they ended up just putting us all on charters out to Al Udeid. Or the Herc, which I fucking hated being in the back of those things, but they were probably absolutely brilliant to fly. But also, as you get older, everyone then desperately tries to change across to multis, because then you're getting a free thousands and thousands of flying hours before going to the airlines and training on a multi-engine aircraft. But one of my best mates at the time, when we had our streaming day, when we were told where we were going, and he was sent rotary instead of fast jets because he'd always dreamed of being a tornado pilot, and he just didn't get out of bed for the entire day. He was that miserable, pissed off. Really? But I was quite happy to be sent helicopters. I thought I was going to end up being sent multis or chopped. I didn't have a huge amount of confidence in my ability, so I was quite pleased to go helicopters. And then again, you get to express a choice for where you want to go at the end of your helicopter training. When I was there was the Merlin, Chinook, Puma, or search and rescue. We still had the yellow battle dodgers on the Sea Kings, but the Puma had a reputation for being just for the best pilots because of the sports car bite you in the arse thing. I actually wanted to go Merlin when I was at that point in my flying training, because it was still pretty much a brand new aircraft, but it had very recently shorn a tail rotor in a flight down south, one of the Navy ones, so they were all grounded, so they weren't flying, weren't training anyone on it. So I got Stream Puma, which I was really surprised at the time, but I'm so glad I was, because it's an absolutely awesome airplane to fly, even with everything that's happened to me since. And this is one of the things that I'm actually really grateful to the podcast for, and for your Instagram accounts, because until last year, when my awesome therapist at the time, hi Jane, had introduced me to the VSON podcast, I hadn't been able to separate out the really good parts of my Air Force career that I really enjoyed with the really bad parts. Whereas then I started sticking loads of photographs and dits up on Instagram of flying. and started to get some of that pride back in what I'd done and how much I enjoyed flying the Puma back then. Because it was, it's what kids dream of when you're probably sitting in a soggy field in a hedge line, either on Salisbury Plain or out in Northern Ireland or something. Out comes the sound of a helicopter coming to pick you up, fly you back for a cup of tea within less than 5 minutes to Bessbrook Mill or what have you. It's a guy sitting up front there giving you a wave and a thumbs up. Like, yeah, wish I was doing that.
Usually a 4-tonner, to be honest, mate. usually a 4-ton Chinook. Zulu Alpha straps. What do you know about them? Do you know that they make straps for the watches of frontline operators around the world? Firemen, pilots, infantry. Maybe not infantry. You lot are fucking tight. I know you're probably not going out. You probably wearing your G10 for men strap. Well, it's time to put it away. Get yourself a Zulu Alpha strap. Veteran owned, veteran operated, support veteran causes and veteran endeavours like this podcast. And this is an endeavour. I mean, if you ever tried fucking coming up with new adverts every week, then you know what kind of endeavour it is. So your own mate, Mucka Geo, get yourself a Zulu Alpha strap. They don't cost much. I reckon if you've got time to be sitting around listening to podcasts, you've probably got the time to be buying a Zulu Alpha strap. They look great. They work great. Durable, hard-working. Never thought a strap could be hard-working, but these are. Check them out, guys, and support veteran causes, all that kind of stuff. At Zulu Alpha Straps, ZuluAlphaStraps.com. All right, let's get back in the podcast. So, here's one. On the movies, right? Someone will be like, oh, you gotta get in this helicopter. Don't worry, I was in the army or whatever. And they'll be like some ex-Navy SEAL who can fly all the helicopters. Let's just say that they're not, let's just say that they're an ex-helicopter pilot. Could you jump in a Merlin and be like, sound, we're off? Or would jumping in a Merlin, is it comparative for like jumping from one car to another? Or would you be like, all right, cool, we're off, smash, big explosion?
If it was running and you didn't have any emergencies on the flight, it would be fine. I could fly it.
Right.
But I wouldn't have a clue how to start a Merlin because all the switches...
Do they not just have a big button that says push to start?
Maybe they do on the modern ones. The Puma, you had sort of manual throttles, and you had to be really gentle with it because if you just slammed the throttle forward after starting it, it just burned the thing up, blow it. So yeah, I mean, maybe with the new modern ones, you just go push to start and off it goes. But then also a big part of your training is how to deal with any emergencies when you're flying, and
I should hope so.
Absolutely.
as someone that sat in the back, I'm glad that was a big part of the training.
Quite. So if you had an engine fire, for example, the fire extinguishers are probably pretty obvious, but if they weren't, then I wouldn't know how to put it out. And similarly, if you had, if the rotation of the blades was the opposite way and your tail rotor's on the other side on the helicopter, your instinct from your training on your type of aircraft is going to make you push the pedals the correct way to keep the nose straight. If it's different, you'd probably get it pretty quickly. But in an emergency, those are the sort of times when you go by muscle memory. So if you're making an emergency landing with engine off or something, or the tail rotor off, then those are the sort of times that you want that muscle memory to kick in your training.
At the risk of flaring your PTSD, but at the end of the day, show business comes first. Did you have any emergencies where you did get in a bit where you did think like, fuck?
Not really. There was a hindsight one. The closest I came, and I feel a very close affinity with the airframe that saved me on this day. It was out in Iraq. We were about to go and do an early morning bus run. It was one of the days that I used to love flying on because it was sort of February, March, so it was still cool and cold in the morning. You'd still have a mist, and you'd fly low level over the city and then turn over the river, and you were then able to drop down even lower because even though you're cleared to 50 feet, there's loads of masts and aerials and stuff, so you're flying a little bit higher than 50 feet to clear all of those. But turning over the river, you'd then drop right down to 50 feet. And so you'd be in line with the riverbanks either side, and then you'd climb for the Victory Bridge, and then especially with the cold morning, you'd have the power to pull quite a tight turn to go into the green zone landing zone. So it was an absolutely wonderful way to fly those early mornings. I'd started the aircraft, and it was running hot, like we were talking about with the throttles. I was perhaps being a bit agricultural and sticking a bit too much fuel in, but actually we tried it a second time, and then a lot more smoke started coming out, so shut it all down. The air traffic send the fire engines out just in case, but she cooled down. Start opening up the cowlings with the engineers, which is all the sort of plastic sheeting and stuff that covers everything mechanical up. And there's a massive tub, looks like one of those huge plastic paint containers, tins of paint, right next to the gearbox and the tail rotor drive shaft, full of wipes from cleaning up the aircraft on the servicing the night before.
Oh, full of what? Like wipes? You mean like what? Like oily rags and stuff?
Yeah. So massive heavy tin, like a giant paint tin. So if we'd taken off and flown just as we were turning to go down over the river, that probably would have bounced down the inside of the tail rotor drive shaft, which is like made of tin foil, and smashed it to bits, and we'd have probably had a tail rotor failure at no altitude above the river and ended up ditching if we were lucky. So yeah, that was the closest. That was when I was sort of saved by one of the aircraft, but I've never really had an emergency landing or a time where I've had to do a daring do landing, I'm afraid.
I gotta say, I enjoyed helicopter flights in Iraq a lot. I don't know if it's because of the airframes or just, I don't know what, but like you said, like the pilots used to follow like the rivers and stuff along, and you'd be banking all over the place, and it was fucking really cool. That was a lot of fun. Whereas like in Afghan, it just seemed like more like bus, you kind of come in, you take off, a little bit of zigzag, and then you're off. And then it's across the desert and you're back. It was pretty dull, really. But the Iraq ones, I'm sure there's a lot of people nodding their heads listening right now. A lot of those rides, really good fun.
Cool.
I don't think it's ever a Puma though, mate. I think I've only went in a Puma once, and it was down a Salisbury plane. But was a Puma a back door one, or was it side door?
Side door. 2 side doors.
What was the thinking over making side doors, right? Because I've always just thought like tail ramps seem a lot. I like those ones in Vietnam where you can jump on both sides. It's pretty alley. But like the one side, I always just thought was a bit limiting.
No, Puma's got both sides.
Oh, he's got both sides, is it? There you go. Must have just had the one open.
Alley aircraft. But the absence of a tail door in that is to stop you from walking into the tail rotor and turning your head into 2 pieces.
Well, that makes sense. If I was to raise money through a Kickstarter with a guest, would you be able to pilot a veteran state of mind? I want a Huey helicopter. So one of the things, I don't ask for sports cars, mate. I don't ask for sports cars with big houses. All I want in my life is a working GPMG and a Huey.
You want to tap up Fred North, that guy that does all the stunt flying out in Hollywood.
Is he related to Peter North? Because he did some kinds of stunts in Hollywood, but it wasn't related to flying.
I wouldn't know.
Young listeners, I'm not suggesting you Google Peter North, but if you do, stick your VPN on and clear your browser history.
NSFW.
I don't even know what that is, mate. Too many letters for me.
Not suitable for work.
It is when you're right and work on your own, mate. Everything's suitable then. Mate, I've enjoyed today's chat, mate. It's been informative. Thank you for the work you're doing with the AFCS Helpline, help site, website. It's nice. Veterans helping other veterans, so I do appreciate it. I speak on behalf of all the loyal peasants listening today. Everyone go over there, check it out. I'm sure James is open to feedback as well. Any parting words, anything that you could ask from the listeners, anything like that, mate? Anything that's on your mind? Anything really?
Keep an eye out on the AFCS stuff, because there is some movement at the moment. I think it's being debated. Like you said, it probably will have happened by the time. Well, it will have happened by the time the podcast comes out. But it's being debated in the House of Commons later this week. I think it's around about the 23rd or 24th of March. Owen Thompson, I think his name is an SNP politician that has taken it upon himself to try and push for change with the AFCS and the War Pension Scheme. And there's a few other organisations that are involved in trying to get it updated, or not even updated, just apply the fucking thing properly. So if you have the wherewithal, write to your MP. They usually have on their website, they'll have their email address. And as long as you can say that you're their constituent, you can put in your postcode into the Parliament website, and it'll tell you who your MP is. Email them and say, I've had this dodgy experience with the AFCS. I'm not asking you to do anything necessarily now, but please can you pay attention to this early day motion or to Owen Thompson's stuff or as it progresses, and please take an interest. Because the more stuff like that happens, even if it just rings a little bell in their head, then they can throw a bit more support, because they'll be getting written to by people from absolutely everything to support Ukraine, support Brexit, support the fisheries, support the steel. They've got everything, and they're trying to deal with all of that. So it's just a little polite line to the MP, just gives them a little placeholder in their head about it. And the other thing is just try and be kind to people. People like Johnny Mercer, he's tried his hardest. And I'm a Labour supporter, not.
His officers stick together, don't they? You can trust them. I agree with what you're saying about, but you all hang out in the officers' mess together talking about how to whip the peasants into shape. If you want to really make your letter stand out, like you say, they got letters coming in about Ukraine, this cause, that cause, make your letter stand out. Send a nice piece of rope in the envelope, and then they'll remember.
Don't do that.
James, I'm looking at the notes you sent me, and you said rope in the mail to the MPs.
You'll have the police turning up.
Just say it's for, I don't know, just say it's for neck cuddles. That's all it's for. It's a stress relieving neck cuddler.
I guess my only other parting shot would be the helicopter pilots try their hardest to get to you. I'm sorry if we're always late. I'm sorry if the cabs break down. They are old. Puma have celebrated its 50th anniversary this year. But
is it still in service?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's in its second iteration now, as of probably nearly 10 years ago now. But they updated it to about a 1970s version about 10 years ago.
So when you say that it's in 50 years of service, are we talking like Boise's Broom here, where every part has been replaced, and you're like, well, we've been using these for 50 years, and every single part is new.
The engines have been updated, and the avionics have been updated 10 years ago. But the ones that I was flying, it was the HC1 model Mark 1. It was bits have been bolted onto it, but the engines were same spec as the first ones from the 1960s. Hydraulics, undercarriage, tail rotor, blades, everything, all original.
Do you have many of them?
I'm guessing about 20 to 30. It's not tons, especially when you've got a load in deep line servicing. You've got some deployed on exercise. When height of a rack, you've got a load out there on ops. You also need them for training the junior pilots, keeping everyone else current. They work hard.
So we got about 3 that we can put in the field, and that's pretty good for the Britain. And this is why we have 4-ton Chinooks.
Flying crane.
Right, mate. Did you give the what you call it?
The website
addresses? Did you give that? And I will also put in the show notes. But if you didn't give it, can you give that again?
It's afcshelp.co.uk. But also, if you go on to either my Instagram, which is fairycakes33, or I've set up an Instagram specifically for doing memes about AFCS, and that's AFCS Help.
Is there also a bloodsucker that if people wanted to use to get their claim through? Because as we've already discussed, our listeners are not intelligent people. Most of them are idiots. That's why they're here. I'm only joking, guys. I really don't go anywhere, please. I need this. But like, if someone wanted to do, you don't have to answer this, mate. But if there is a law firm that you would recommend, and we're not taking any money from this, wink. Who would they be, and who can I hit up for my commission?
There are probably quite a few, and I've asked the ones that I've used if I can put them on the website, but there's all sorts of that. The bean counters step in and go, oh, well, he uses naughty words on the website, so we can't have ourselves associated with him, kind of thing.
Oh, well, fuck them then. I'm not sending anyone there, we.
No,
let their kids go to a second grade public school if they don't want our peasant money. They can fuck off. A lot of them.
There's a guy called Grant Everett at Alma Law. He's an ex commando artillery, I think. So he understands the lingo with being ex-military, and he was amazing with me that time when I was freaking out. I'd just spoken to the Veterans Welfare Service and told you've only got 3 years. And my wife said to me, "You've got your really wide, scary eyes on. I think you need to go for a walk." And I spoke to Grant, and he said, "Just okay, Paul." I probably babbled at him for a bit, and he said, "Just take a breath. Let's just sit, talk it through, and see where we're at." And for a lawyer to do that is really something, because their time really is money. The other firm, if you want a big firm, Irwin Mitchell have a dedicated team that only do Armed Forces Compensation Scheme work. And I've heard very good things about them as well. So yeah, those are the two that I've interacted with and I can recommend personally. But there probably are plenty of others that are good.
I'm going to get in touch with one of these companies too, mate, because you know what? I'd given up on mine. I say given up. I never even put it in because I was just like, fuck it, I don't want to deal with it. But now, you know, all of your talk about hanging these people has inspired me. And I think you could say that you have incited me to violence and also to action. And I'm going to put this in just because, fuck them. And then we'll do something really charitable with the money. Charitable for me. Like a nice holiday. But no, mate, like, you're right. I mean, the thing is, mate, you're right. You're like what you said earlier, it's just like, you just get to the point of giving up. Even if you're not in a bad place, you're just like, fucking hell, is it worth it? Because it's not like the amounts they give you life changing, is it? So it kind of just makes you go like, But at the end of the day, people are owed their fucking money. So everyone go get your fucking money. Because otherwise, don't think of it as you not getting your money. Think of it as them having your money.
Going on redecorating politicians' flats.
Not just politicians, mate. Anyway, I got a list here. Anyone that works for Veterans UK, I'm going to hand this list will get sent to Joe at the end of the podcast to add to our tally for the day of the rope. We got anyone that works at Veteran UK, the families of anyone that works at Veteran UK, their wife's their wife's tennis partners or whatever. Blackadder reference there for anyone listening. Mate, thank you so much for today. This has been very informative, and we'll have you back on to discuss. Basically, see how things are going on the website once you've been up and running for a while.
So that'd be awesome.
But you're welcome back anytime, mate. Thanks for supporting the podcast. Thanks for sharing the podcast. And thanks for all the nice things you said about me and Joe. I mean, I run on compliments, so I appreciate them deeply.
Thank you.
And anything we can do for you, let us know. Everyone go follow AFCS. Go follow the website. Go, if you're after the claim, get on there, get your information, all that kind of stuff. Mate, thanks so much for today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Very kind.
Cheers, James.
You sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle.